There's a couple problems with taking x1 too aggressively at opening. Let's look at a few different scenarios. But start with something simple where we're green, our opponent is red, and we're both fairly evenly matched, right? So equal speed. Green's goal, obviously, is to cut off red. And let's assume these other guilds are they just don't even participate, or they just farm around their hub, right? So start simple. Let's just say it's green and red. After green cuts red, green's goal is once red sees this happen, red is gonna start reacting and trying to grab as much of this A, B, and C sector as they can, right? So green will just race red for these tiles and then clean up the rest of this later, right? That's green's goal. The problem with taking x1 though that quickly, green goes 1, 2, 3 to gain access to x1, right? Red is gonna go, there's red's hub, 1, 2, 3 to get access. And you can see here that red has already, this line right here has already kind of restricted green's ability in A sector, So both teams have support on x1 now. Red can start racing x1 if they want. Most guilds do, just because that's just the intuition. Let's say red does race that though. Green wins. We're green. We win. But it was a race, so now red is loaded on that. The next race is D2A, and this will be a race as well. Let's say red gets this though. Let's say these teams are evenly matched. Green was a little faster on x1, but red wins D2A. And green is kind of preloaded on that as well. Okay, but red takes it. The next race from here is probably E2A, but if you're red and you're smart, instead of trying to catch E2A, you just cut straight down to D5D and then come back in here and clean this up. So red would actually control about 2/3 of the map right here, right? Take a step back. Let's say red does not race x1. Red's fourth move is just straight to D2A, okay? Green's fourth move is x1. So we have the same number of moves, haven't raced yet. E2A becomes the next race now. And instead of being preloaded on each other's stuff, red has a straight shot to E2A. And if red wins E2A, the next race is F2A, right? And eventually, green is gonna need to win one of these races, like desperately. They might be preloaded on everything, but they desperately need to win one of these because there's fewer moves required on red's end. Green is starting from the center, so to get behind red is actually 1, 2 races to get behind red over here, right? So if red loses F2A, instead of racing E3B, just play it safe, take A3A, and cut green off there. So red controls at least half of the map now, right? And green has the center, but look at the support that red has on it. Red has 1, 2, 3 tiles that can take the center. And green controls the center, more victory points, right? But the next round, all these timers are going to open at the exact same time, right? Green has got to get off of here somewhere. Probably straight down would be the correct move, This is going to open first, but X1 opens at the same time. So red is moving on to X1 and green is trying to get off of it. The problem for green here is that red has 3 different tiles that anchor X1. So even if green is able to get off of X1 in time, red is still going to get it either way, right? Because there's 2 additional tiles supporting it. There's no way that green can take both. And from there, red just siphons back down the same path that green took to get to X1 in the first place, right? All of these red races over here, if red is smart, once they establish this wall, they'll load and hold D3B, load and hold D3A, load and hold C3B, so that once green takes this D2, red just closes, and you could hold these for 3 hours if you want. Red just closes these though, so that even after green takes D2, they've got nowhere to go from there. And if you wait 3 hours to close those D3B, that means that you'll control these tiles for 7 hours. Does that make sense? And there's no way that green can touch them. Let's take a step back to the beginning here. The other problem with preloading X1, so if it is a race and green wins, red gets a piece of it, right? The problem with that is that even if green wins D2A and is able to just cut the straight line, red is preloaded on X1 now. And assuming both teams are equally paced, green will not be able to take C2 as fast as red is able to finish taking X1, since they've already got 100 hits on it or whatever, you know? So the line that green established falls apart pretty quick from here. Red can clean up all these tiles that green had closed before and set up a pinch point, right? And then just take their sweet time loading and holding as many 3 rings as they can, right? So the subsequent rounds after opening, the main problem with X1 at opening is that all your timers are within a second of each other, you know? So everything is a race. But later on, in subsequent rounds, after red starts setting up these timers, right, they take control, they pinch you off, and then set up some timers. That's going to slow down the map flow, right? To where if green starts trying to make a counter move to get to F5B, red can anticipate that. This has been held, right? It's just sitting there open. Green is trying to get behind red and get into the E sector. Red can just close this and then close F4A right behind it, okay? So this is, these are both going to be 4 hours away, right? And it's just 1-2 moves for red, where green has 1-2-3 moves. 1-2-3 moves to try and get behind that. Does that make sense? Let's throw another variable in here, and we're going to put 3 teams on the map. We're going to say that green and red are the top dogs again, okay? These guys are equally powered, and they're both, you know, one of them is going to get first place, the other one's going to get second place. Let's put yellow on the map too, though. And these guys are like a solid third place crew, right? They're not going to win, but they're a pretty solid team. So they'll mostly farm around their hub, but at opening, they're probably going to get out a little bit, right? They're not going to make it to X1, but they're gonna grab some stuff in the map, right? Green is strong, so green is bam, 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 X1 immediately, right? Yellow's like, well, that sucks. So I guess they got X1. Let's start working this way so that we can get as much of this real estate that green's going to gobble up otherwise, right? So let's reduce the number of yellow moves made. Yellow has 5 right there. Okay, so yellow is going for center control, right? Yellow is going to go 1, 2, 3. to get access into X1. Keep in mind they're a third place team, so they're not quite as fast as green and red. Green goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and probably already has control of X1 by the time crew 3 gets here, okay? Red is equally as fast as green, and looking at this map, I definitely wouldn't race X1, and I wouldn't even go for D2A either. So from here, red's smart move is actually 3-ring, right? Knowing that green will probably take this, but yellow might try and race it if they're that fast. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4 moves for yellow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves for green to get to that. Red has made 5 moves as well. And remember, we're just as fast as green. So this is move 5 for green. Red has also made 5 moves. Red has... There's no reason to get ambitious over here for red. Just let yellow farm. Close off here. And hold here. This would become a hold. You could actually hold D4B, I guess. And we don't need to work on that yet. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. Green is blocked from E and D sector with this move. And this move blocks yellow from D sector as well. So from here, 5, green's next move is obviously going to be to start closing us off, right? That's their goal. And these top guilds, they don't understand this rotational stuff. So they once they hit this wall, they're going to be like, oh, okay, start on B2 and start working into B sector. Let's remove some of green's moves there. Once they hit that wall, they're, okay, let's get B2 and C2 next. So while green works on B2, or C2, I guess, would be their logical next move, red just says, you can have it. We're going to work on this while you work on that. And green's next move in reaction to that is to start, oh shit, we need to get behind him now, right? Red is already a step ahead. And even if green tries to race here, red can pinch him off here or here. So this is the footprint that red controls now. Pretty good chunk of the map, and we've stuffed this number 3 guild in the same sectors as the number 2 guild, or the number 1 guild, right? These green guys are super fast, and we've stuffed them both in a sector together. So the next round, all of these timers are going to be preloaded by one or the other, right? Which means everything over here is going to be a race for them. Make sense? From here, it's really hard for green to fight on 2 fronts. And remember that after red closes off this sector, these other two, there's 2 crews in the D and F sector that are inactive, right? Green and yellow don't have to worry about that. But there's also 2 crews in a sector that we control by ourselves that are inactive. So we can set up loads and holds. I guess that wouldn't be a hold, that's a tile we took, but we could hold this one. Set up holds so that the next round, I mean, someone's got to, we control this. We can't hold on to it. Green will take it, right? But we can prevent their progress further into B and C sector with these holds. And same logic applies to theirs. Green controls this. They can't hold it. Someone has to take it, which is going to be us, right? Yellow can't access that. Does that make sense? In a nutshell, the goal with, there's actually a wasted tempo, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a wasted tempo in there where taking X1, yeah, it's the most VP, and you can also access 6 different tiles from it. but it can also be taken from 6 different locations. So the counter to that is 1, 2, 3, 4 from green team, where X1 is threatened from 2 green tiles. The next round, and it's the same number of moves, right? They control X1, but we control 2 points of support to recapture it next round. And assuming it's just the 2 of us on the board, we can actually wait a couple minutes to take X1, right? We can let them take D2, let them load C2 before we close X1. So now the X1 timer is a little 2 minutes behind everything else. And we'll start setting up that timer in 5-minute increments till the point where X1 is 15 minutes behind. And even if red has support tiles touching it, they won't have the timer to access it next round. Does that make sense? So green's move here is 1, 2, 3, 4, but it saves a tempo. Instead of wasting attrition on X1 trying to race, where if we lose that race, we just wasted a bunch of fights, and now we've got to race another tile to stay in front of it. 1, 2, 3, 4 cuts them off immediately. 5 becomes the next race. And if they start winning 5, like if we're racing on it, it's like, nah, not going to happen. Throw the stop and just cut straight down and stop them, right? We both control about half the map now. And from there, the next race, red is going to try to move B to A. But if green is smart, they'll do something like that, right? And then, something like this, right? Where red might be faster here, but green can just drop straight down and cut off another sector. Green can set up a timer, right? So that the next round, you don't need the VP off of a 4-ring tile, or a 5-ring tile, sorry. So the next round, when everything opens, red takes this, but green can load, hold. So we'd close this, hold this. After red takes that, close this next. So red's got nowhere to go for the next round. Does that make sense? The concept here is, instead of taking X1, is to set up a revolution. And depending on how fast your enemy is going to determine where you set that pinch point, right? I mean, if your enemy is a little bit slower and you could pinch them off there, that's ideal. But avoid X1, let them take it, because next round it becomes a race that you absolutely cannot lose. You know what I mean? Because you've got support from 4 different tiles. So let's say you're equally fast, they're able to race off of X1 as fast as you can race onto it. They're going to take F2A or whatever. But they can't take all 4 of those support tiles, so you will get X1 regardless. Does that make sense? This rotational thing, as the rounds go on, once we recapture X1, you end up shifting that rotational boundary a little bit closer each round. Does that make sense? On the back end, that's what all those load and holds are for, is so, I mean, they are going to break through. If they're as fast as we are, they're going to break through something and set up holds behind it to interrupt their flow. Does that make sense? So if green takes this entire piece of the map and no one else is active enough to fight back, green takes all of that, but we've got 4 holds. So the next round, after red takes all of that, right, they're open, someone's got to take them. Red's the only team that fights. As they're taking that, that's when green closes this, and now we've created 3 little anchor points in red territory, so that when red stuff opens next round, take a couple, but then load and hold again and again and again, and start setting up that rotation to where as red moves around the map, 4 or 5 rounds later, red is trying to move around the map to get to some of your soft, squishy open tiles, and they've got these roadblocks in here, right, that are 2 hours behind and restricting their flow. Does that make sense? And they're going straight to close, so they hit this roadblock. They can't move past it, and in the meantime, we're cleaning up stuff that they took straight to close, right? Conrear is a lot more competitive and aggressive with GBG. Dog the First is the guy that I told you about last night, so hopefully he joins us. He and I have noticed the same thing though. Conrear is super aggressive with GBG. I think Arvahol. I saw the red guys, Renji or whatever. I saw them blowing camps last night. Yeah, but that's about the extent of their aggressiveness. They're definitely not holding anything, or moving strategically on the map. They just take whatever's open, and looks like they have the numbers to do that. But there's no strategy or order to the way they take them. They just take it if it's open. So I think we could actually beat them down pretty effectively.